Okay, good afternoon. I'm going to call the, well, first of all, I'm going to call the special closed council meeting to order and recess it until after the General Purpose and Finance Committee's open and closed are finished. And with that, I will call to order the Open General Purposes Committee meeting to order. So first of all, in terms of the order on the agenda, the request has been made to reverse the order of 7 and 6. Is that acceptable to all members of council? Any objections to that? Okay, we'll just go ahead and do it. May I have a motion on the minutes?
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor, post carried. Then we have a number of reports involving the various grants. Now, we'll call to order on the arts and culture grants. Cami, are you going to come and speak to this? Now, for all the staff that are involved, you probably know by now, we've all read the reports. You can highlight if anything needs to be specifically emphasized or highlighted, or you want to add anything to your report, but otherwise we'll just go straight to discussion.
Thank you, through your worship. I'm Kamir Chaichan, representing Community Services, and I have nothing further to add to the report at this time and available to answer your questions. Thank you.
Move the recommendation.
Okay. So that's moved and seconded. We'll go to Councillor Wolf. Just hang on a second. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Question to staff is in regards to the one application that did not get support. That's the one from the Red Fox Healthy Living Society. I know the reason for that is the organization's mandate wasn't art-focused. Clearly, the project sounds very art-focused, and some of the other projects this group has done were art-focused. And in the description, it says that in the future, a group like this should contact the city before applying. Could we not just forward this application to the health and social safety grant and then just have it analyzed and prioritized based on those? Because I guess that's clearly where this one would have fit, if I'm correct.
Through your worship, yes, that is possible that we can do that if we receive the information and know that information in a timely manner, then we could certainly forward that in future instances.
So just to respond then, so that information would be passed to this group, but it's too late to be in this cycle.
That's correct.
As a result of the timing of it all. Okay, thank you.
All right, any other comments or concerns? Okay, we'll call the question then. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That's carried. Thank you. We'll go to the Parks, Recreation, and Community Events. Councillor Liu, I believe in terms of kids sport, do you still have a conflict? Are you still on the board?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll deal with this exclusive of the kids sport application. We'll deal with that separately. So that's $25,000 worth. All right, staff, go ahead.
Good afternoon, committee. For those that I haven't met, my name is Keith Miller, and I am the new Director of Recreation and Sports Services. Here with my colleague Todd. We have nothing further to add to the report, but we're happy to add any questions that the committee might have.
Okay, any comments, questions?
There's the recommendation.
Just a minute, the recommendation with minus $25,000.
For kids sport.
Okay, so seconded. Okay, we have Councillor Heed.
Thank you, Mayor. If I could just refer to the attachment, the Somali Women's Empowerment Society. And, you know, I think this is a very viable program that we would support. And I'm just trying to get some more understanding of why the request for $2,500 and the recommendation is $1,000.
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, I believe that's on the next agenda item, the Enviro grant.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was Parks and Rec. I apologize.
No problem.
Sorry, Mayor.
That's all right.
There's an excuse for being new.
I was going to say ahead of you as usual, but I wouldn't. Councillor Day.
Thank you very much to the chair. On page GP 77, I note that in 2023, there was 12 total number of applications, and that's down 3 from 2022. And I'm just wondering how we can, what happened, and is there a way for us to get the information out more to other applicants that might have applied in the past to see if we can't get back to normal levels?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, we did the typical marketing this year, social media, the webpage, e-newsletter, and a press release. I think it's probably a little bit of a cycle. If you look over the last 4 years, we've had an ebb and flow. And we are seeing some changes with COVID and us getting back into the swing of things. So we're hoping that probably next year we'll see some change again, and hopefully it'll be more positive.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, thank you for that.
Okey-doke, so I'm going to call the question. This is exclusive of kids' sport. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That's carried. Okay, that brings us, Councillor Liu. You've declared your conflict. So we have, this is the $25,000 item. Councillor McNulty.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I'm going to make a motion that.
Oh, yes, you're on.
Thank you, Worship, on kids' sport, as we have in each year. I'm going to move that $20,000 be granted to kids' sport, and that $5,000 be held back and directed to Sports Council to address the needs not covered by kids' sport, because kids' sport only covers those that are affiliated with a provincial sport organization, and other sports are not. And also at the same time, that the applications be vetted by staff and the Sports Council chairman or appointee, and that any balance at the end of the year may go to kids' sport or remain in a fund for sport and recreation.
Okay, I'm going, please don't second that motion. I need to clarify. First of all, I think in terms of the $5,000, that staff would be directed in consultation with the president of the Sports Council to give out the grants for sports not covered by kids' sport, and that the balance left of that $5,000 at the end of the year
Be adjudicated in
would again be adjudicated by staff in conjunction with the president of the Sports Council, and can be given to kids' sport.
May be given to kids' sport and or the recreation fund.
Okay,
which we
so
have.
the idea is, it's going to be staff doing the analysis. They will consult with kids' sport, and this is for the $5,000.
Yeah.
And to give out grants, and then at the end of the year, it can go to kids' sport.
Correct.
Okay, so that is the motion. Is there a seconder for it? That's moved and seconded. Councillor Day.
Yeah, thank you very much. We've done this before when we held back the $5,000 just to see, as Councillor McNulty correctly points out, there are other groups that are not part of kids' sport. What happened in the past?
Right. It's consistent with that.
So in the past, did you find other groups that needed that $5,000, or did the money go to kids' sport anyhow?
Can you answer that?
Yes, through the chair to Councillor Day. This past year, there were participants that were referred from Kidsport to staff. Unfortunately, not with enough time before year end to follow up and disperse those funds to those participants. If under council's advisement, we would be able to follow a process to do so this year.
Could we then reach out to those groups so they have a heads up well in advance of the deadline?
Oh, it's reaching out to the individuals who are applying.
Yes, exactly. Could we do that?
All right, so does that make sense?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, yes, we would be able to reach out to the individuals.
Excellent. I think it's a good idea because, Kids Sport does some great work, but there's also other groups out there, and I think it's logical to at least give them a kick at the can. So thank you for that.
Okay, so then everyone clear on the motion on Kids Sport? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That is carried. Thank you, gents. Then we'll go to the environmental enhancement grants. Okay. So, anything you want to add to your report?
Through your worship, nope, nothing to add to the report, but happy to answer any questions that you guys might have.
My question is, like, I think all the other grants, you require an organization to be the recipient of the grant. And these, there's a number of them. They all sound good. I mean, so don't get me wrong. But they're being given out to individuals. Is there a reason why we're taking a different approach, or have I got it wrong?
So through your worship, this grant does allow individuals to apply for grants up to $500 per applicant. So that is different from the other grants. But this grant is new. It's only in its second year. And we did kind of do across the base or across the region research when we created the report, or the info for the report, and how we were going to do the environmental enhancement grant. And so it does differ slightly from the other city grants.
All right, well, maybe what you can do is after they're all dispersed, once we get the history of it all, maybe you could give us a memo or bring it up next year and tell us whether you think that should be changed or whether it's been successful. Probably the amount that's involved is not that huge, so it kind of gives us options that we may not otherwise have. Councillor McNulty.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I'm going to be supporting these there. I'm very happy to see them. We finally got them in line. Just a couple of things. I think there's some very exciting things, and given climate change and what have you, these lead us one more step along the way. And maybe I asked the same question last year on it, is to increase the amount through you to staff. I think you've done a great job in adjudicating them, and there's never enough money, but to continue to encourage environmental enhancement is what I'm trying to get at. And I thought we said we would try to increase the budget, but I don't think we did we, from last year? It's about $35,000 last year, too.
Through the chair to Councillor McNulty, no, the budget did not increase from last year.
Well, Your Worship, for next year, hopefully, I'd like to see us increase it to $50,000 at least in the kitty to have it. And the other question is, did we leave anybody out that did apply?
Through the chair to Councillor McNulty, no, this year all applicants are receiving some funding, at least. Maybe not their full amount that they requested, but yes.
Excellent job then on it. But I know some only got a quarter of what they asked for, whatever, and I could see why you did that. And I'm no criticism, you just didn't have enough money. So I'm trying to encourage more funds on it, and hopefully have this as one of our larger areas of grants. Thank you.
Councillor Heed.
Yes, I guess this is the third time. I think your director knows exactly what I'm going to ask, and ma'am, I think you know what it is too, so just an explanation.
Sure. Through the chair to Councillor Heed, the Somali Women's Group, like many of the other applications this year, only got a portion of what they were requesting because the evaluating committee, we had to make some cuts. Obviously, we had over $50,000 in us and only $36,000 to give away. So across the board, we cut things. We were strict on honorarium costs, which our grant guidelines outline as a max of $350. And then we cut things like food and beverages. And then marketing was also cut for all of the grants, and that was part of the Somali Women's Group application. Their application was also quite similar to last year's application, almost identical actually, and one of the things they put in for last year was tools, the exact same amount, and we were hoping that they could repurpose their tools and take advantage of circular economy and reuse them on this year's grant, so we didn't give them funding for that again. And then just their personnel costs were quite high, and so again, keeping with some of the other grants, we lowered that as well, so that's why we only ended up with 1,000 of the 2,500.
So ma'am, you may be able to answer this question through the chair or not. Do they also apply for some of the multicultural grants that are offered from the province? Do you know that offhand? Do they disclose that in their grant application at all?
Through the chair to Councillor Heath, no, they didn't disclose any additional funding that they had applied for in their application. So I'm not sure if they have or not. I know that Parks has liaised with them for quite a few years now, working out at Terra Nova, so we do support them in other ways, but outside of this grant. But I'm not sure about other funding they've applied for.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Chair.
All right, so we'll call the question in a minute, but for next year, if you could tell us your thoughts about whether it's working to give the money to individuals in part, and also your recommendations on the amount, the overall amount. So with that, I'll call the question. No, we don't have the motion on the floor.
So move the recommendation.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Health, social, and safety grants.
To the chair, I have nothing to add to the report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, Councillor McNulty?
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I support everything that's here, and I want to thank staff for everything they've done, but I do want to move an amendment, if I may. And it's interesting, there's a tremendous need out there right now, probably more so than most people. I think we've got everything from refugees here to people, very difficult times. And the organizations here, for the most part, I'm the liaison to RCSAC, and know all the work that they do and all the goodness that goes. And staff have given 8 groups the full amount, which well deserve a great job done by staff. And most of them nearly got 100%, and this is an area we have to go in. But there's 2 I'd like to, we have a balance, Your Worship. Maybe I should deal with it after.
Well,
there's a balance of 5605,
Right.
and given this area, there was one group that has came on last year for the first time and had finally got their act together and weren't able to really get into the flow of things. And that's the 55-plussers. And also, the other thing I wanted to mention is the good work that St. Albans does. They've got 100%, but given all the stuff that St. Albans does for us and for the homeless and those kinds of things, I'd like to see them get more than 100%, to be quite frank with you. They've got a little extra money. I think we can put it in that area and put it forward. There's, otherwise, I think that they're probably as deserving as any. They're all deserving, but that the balance, I thought of, for the 55-plus, there's another $1,000. And then for the balance go to St. Albans. I don't know if anybody has looked at the grants as closely as I have, but I look at them and I think it would be money well spent in our community.
All right, we'll come back to you on that. Councillor Day.
Thank you very much, Mayor Brody. You know, it's funny that you mentioned that, Councillor McNulty, because I think when most of us went to St. Albans and saw the amazing work that they're doing, helping the most vulnerable people in Richmond, and I was really pleased to see that they were getting the full amount. And if the council wants to give them more, I would be thrilled to agree with that. And I wanted to just mention Richmond Addiction Services Society, which is getting the bulk of this money, $226,860. And it says that they serve 7,000 people. That is just a phenomenal amount of people. Again, if a situation comes where they need a little bit more money, is there a way that they can come back to us? Because we know how critical it is out there with so many people addicted to opioids.
Chair to Councillor Day, definitely they can come back to us and apply for a bigger amount next year. As you can tell, we only have a remaining balance of $5,000 in the budget, and so we can definitely consider that for next year.
Right. Well, I'm just really pleased that those 2 groups in particular were given the full amount that they requested. So, yeah, let's see where we are next year. Thank you very much.
Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would just like to advocate for some of the use of the remaining balance to go to Richmond Poverty Reduction Coalition. They did not get their full amount. They got half of their amount, and that is towards operating and staff position. It is on page 311. where their personnel is $9,000 cost. So if they're only getting half of it, how do they hire half of a personnel person? That will likely delay the work that they do into the following year, as is why this grant request is before us now, is they couldn't finish it last year. And they're one group out of all these who come, or at least I feel they report openly, publicly to us. So I would advocate that they get some or all of the remaining balance. Thanks.
All right, any other comments? Because we'll get to some amendments now. Okay, my suggestion is let's have the motion as recommended, get it on the floor, and then we'll do it by way of amendment. So that's moved and seconded. Now, I'm in the hands of any of the councillors who want to comment on it. But frankly, we could probably spend the rest of the day talking about, these are great organizations, they do good work. Rather than cutting fine lines, my suggestion is you take that, what is it, 5605, you cut it in three and give it to the 55 plussers, which is, I guess, that's the Multicultural Helping House. Is that the Multicultural Helping House?
Yes, Multicultural
Okay.
Helping House.
The parish of St. Albans and the Richmond Poverty Reduction Group.
I would so move.
Okay.
I could have that.
Okay, so just a minute. I'll come back to you in a sec. The second one is the Child Care Professional Program. Listen, we've got a motion on the floor. We're going to confuse ourselves. We better, before we do that amendment, let's hear from the child care people. Is there anything to add to your report? Because it's,
No.
sorry. Well, just a
Stay
minute.
back, stay where we are. We're in this
Sorry.
social grants.
I got too many agendas here. Okay, so we're back to reality. So the idea is on the health, social, and safety grants that we would amend it to add 1/3 of the 5605 to each of those three groups. So that's the amendment.
Yeah.
Is there a seconder on the amendment? So that's moved and seconded on the amendment. On the amendment, Councillor Hobbs, did you want to speak on the amendment?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thanks, and through the chair. Well, one of the things with all the grants is being on budget. When it comes to adding more to a group that has already got 100% of what they requested, and there's no dispute that they do great work and it's vital and everything else, I just wonder if we could look at dispersing it among groups that, didn't get, that did not receive their full grant amount, and I don't know if you can comment on that, because I don't have any problem with using the remaining funds. It's just a matter of, I think St. Albans did get 100% of what they requested, and so is there another group that council could consider, or maybe that's the best place that it should go, but they did get 100%, whereas some other groups did not. Thanks.
Councillor Hobbs, staff have no practice in the past where we had recommended more than what they asked for, but it's under council's discretion to allocate the funds as they see fit.
Right, I understand that. Thank you.
All right. From my point of view on that, I think it's a fair point that's being made by Councillor Hobbs. It's just that I think we all have personal knowledge of the great work that this group, the Parish of St. Albans, does. And, just there's no end of resources that they need for what they're doing. So I don't have any other comments, so I'll call the question on the amendment. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. So now on the motion as amended, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That is carried. Okay, thank you. Now we will get to the child care grants. Chris Duggan. See, always getting ahead of myself here. What can I say? Anything to add to your report?
Thank you, Your Worship. I have nothing to add, but I'm happy to answer any
So
questions.
there's the two categories, and you've got the recommendations here. So that's moved and seconded. Councillor Heed.
Thank you, Chair. This is in reference to the YMCA of Greater Vancouver, $13,329 for shelves. And when I look at the other grants and I look at that, other people that have requested shelves in one place, it's about $4,900. Now we have one that specifically, unless I'm reading this wrong, is wants close to $13,300 for shelves. Don't you find that a little costly?
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, this is shelving units specifically for a early childhood development hub. And so it's designed to be a lending library for parents and the community that are using the early childhood development hub. So it's a little bit different than the shelves that may have been requested to hold children's toys in a childcare program. So this is a custom set of shelving units to outfit an entire lending library room. So it's a little bit different than some of the other requests for shelves that may be included in some of the grant applications.
Through the chair, certainly $13,300 for shelves. That's a very costly adventure, no matter what type of shelves you're building, unless you're doing an entire one for Richmond Library or something like that. I just wanted to make or point that out. I thought that was a very costly item. I support the program absolutely 100%. I just thought the cost for shelves was extraordinary.
Okay. Councilor McNulty, did you have your hand up?
I did. I'm going to support the childcare, but it's after we take a vote on that point of information.
Okay. All right. Then, any other comments on this? It's on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That is carried. Now, Councilor McNulty, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I just want to publicly commend our staff for the good work. As you can see how fast we went through this in 25 minutes, approving $997,521 invested back into the community. And it's the good work of staff, and for those of us around the table who have been here for a while know how much good work's been done by the people. And I'm really, as a councillor, not patting ourselves on the back, but at least we're trying to make a difference. And I wish we had more money because there's tremendous need out there. So staff, kudos in each of the departments. Thank you very much for the good work. And hopefully these will be well received by the people that need it, because there is a need. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay. That brings us to the items 6 and 7. Now, we said that we were going to change the order, and we'll go to item 7, which is the Richmond Community Protocol Responding to Racism and Hate. And this is the recommendation of Councillor Chak Au. Now, before we ask you to speak or give you a chance to speak, was there somebody who wanted to speak on this one? Okay, go ahead. D. So you know the drill. You've got 5 minutes. Introduce yourself, please.
My name is Deirdre Whalen. I'm a longtime resident.
Hang on a sec. Please turn on the mic. Go ahead.
My name is Deirdre Whalen, and I'm a longtime resident of Richmond. I'd like to speak on item number 7 on the community protocol. I'm the president of the Richmond Poverty Reduction Coalition, and years ago when we were still a committee, I was asked to sit on a table called Community Collaborative Table, which was chaired by the Richmond Multicultural Community Society. And The reason for that table was to find a way to be more welcoming to Richmondites, to newcomers coming to Richmond. It wasn't too long after bringing all of those different groups together that, and that includes university and RCMP and firefighters and all kinds of folks, including nonprofit, that we realized that not only did we want to make Richmond more inviting and welcoming for newcomers, but also people who've been here a long time are often siloed and in their own little community. So that was the genesis of this, the community protocol, and it took many years to come together. And with COVID, I've lost track of how many years it actually is. But when there was a subcommittee that was put together, and I think Councillor Au was on that committee, including school board and a number of other people that came up with this community protocol. And it was brought back to the CCT, the Community Collaborative Table, for approval, and with a few edits, we approved the protocol. Then it went out to different community organizations, and I'm proud to say that the Richmond Poverty Reduction Coalition endorsed this community protocol at their AGM last June, and we've since used the protocol. It's very useful, it's really user-friendly on how to not be a bystander, to be able to stand up for people that are being oppressed or discriminated against, and not in your own little silo, but and we represent people who have multiple needs, people who have mental, physical handicaps, disabled groups, people in poverty, and we found this protocol to really cover the waterfront. So I'm happy to see this before the Planning Committee and hopefully going to Council unanimously endorsing wanting to take on this protocol. I would also say that it is a living document, and we have heard from the Jewish community in Richmond that that they feel that
that's the other item.
that
We're not talking about the other item, which is anti-Semitism.
So it's a living document, and we're inviting changes and improvements to the protocol in the next few months, and I'm sitting on that committee, so I would welcome other groups to come in and feel that they would be heard.
All right, thank you very much. Someone else? Yes, this gentleman.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, my name is Rahim Othman. I'm a long resident of Richmond as well. I've been involved in interfaith dialogue as well as civic engagement initiatives in the past. I don't want to repeat everything Dee have mentioned, but I'd like to kind of summarize it by saying that it's been many years that community members and representatives of different organizations have been working on this protocol. So it's widely supported. The committee there representative of the various communities within Richmond, and we feel that the community wants it. It's built by the Richmond people for the Richmond people. I'd encourage the city to show support by endorsing it to become an official and formal document. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a question from Councillor Day. Sir, we have a question. It's a question.
Turning back.
Great initiative. Given the many, many years that this took to develop, have you found that attitudes have changed?
You mean within the community?
Yeah.
I mean, it's an ongoing process in my view. It never ends. I think that comes back to the point that have been mentioned by Dee. It's an evolving document. We're gonna, when we start using it, we're gonna be looking for improvement and obviously making it better. So there are always gonna be issues, and there are always gonna be improvement in my view. All right, thank you.
All right.
Questions before I go back?
No, that's it, thanks. We'll go now to Councillor Au to introduce the matter.
Yes, Your Worship. It's my intention to move this motion. And the motion is already written, and the rationale is also being provided. I just want to add that this protocol is the result of a collaboration of the city, stakeholders, city, community organizations, etc., including school board, RCMP, the library, and many others. And the purpose is to work towards a unified document so that it can be a guidance for all the people in Richmond to give response to any critical incidents happened when a hate crime or hate incident happened, so that everybody knows what to do, when to do, and who to approach when there's a need for a referral. So this document was launched formally by the Richmond Multicultural Community Services, which is the lead organization for the formation of this document. But it's not been formally endorsed by the city as a guiding document for the whole city. And the city did invest in staff time and other resources in the formation of this document, including we spent time with this, staff time in actually formatting and printing of this document. So I think if we drop the ball here, I think we are not fulfilling our goal of trying to create an intercultural harmony community. And as being mentioned, it's very wide representation in the committee, and it also is widely supported by the community. And even as provincial government is considering to use this as a template for other cities to use. So I think Richmond can once again provide leadership in the fighting against racism by endorsing this document. It's time for us to do it, and I think it's the right thing for us to do.
So do you want to move it then?
Should I move it?
Okay, so it's moved and seconded. Councilor McNulty.
Yeah, excuse me. Thank you, Worship. I will support the document, and I mean, we can never do enough to tackle the problems that we see within the city. I guess my question to the creator is, how does this sit with our cultural harmony plan? Does this replace it? Because we passed the harmony plan in November 25th, 2019. Where does it fit in, and which document do we use, or should we mesh this in, or should we mesh the harmony plan in? So because whatever we do, I think we should come out with one plan, one focus, and be able to respond in any way, given any incidences that come. And also, I think more importantly, we need to prevent within the community. So I just wonder where it fits in, that's all.
Well, the staff can add to it, but I would say that this is
Just a minute, you got to put on your mic.
I think staff can add to it, but I think this is a tool that we can use in addition to the plan that we already have. So it's one more thing that fits into our whole plan. So I think staff can add to it.
I guess, if I may, Your Worship, then it should be in with this document so that we have one document together and continue to work for cultural harmony. But anyway, where does it?
Staff comment.
Through the chair to Councillor McNulty, the Richmond Community Protocol aligns with one of the actions in the Cultural Harmony Plan that calls for the city to participate in initiatives that respond to incidents of racism and hate. And so it does fit well with what the city is trying to do with the plan.
Okay. Well, I suggest we put them together and keep them in there. And then it comes to the forefront. Excellent. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Hobbs.
Thank you, and through the chair. I'll be supporting the motion before us, and those are good comments about it dovetailing and fitting together with previous documents. I think they can coexist quite nicely. What I did like about it was that it was very full of very useful information, but it's not all theoretical. It also contains a lot of very practical information that somebody, especially somebody new to the community, would find very helpful in navigating their way through different situations that they might find themselves in. And we had a lot of partnerships involved in formulating it. That was good. But that was the part that jumped out at me the most. It actually is a very practical document as well. And new people to the community or people that have been here a long time could look at it and find the resources they need to help them through given situations. So I'll be supporting it. Thank you.
Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a probably simple question to staff. I know we've received this, I believe it was in the previous term, I think it was in an email, but have we ever received this for information? I know Councillor Al mentioned that it has not been formally endorsed, but what level of endorsement have we given it already?
I don't believe we've given it any endorsement. We referred it to staff to give us their thoughts.
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, we have not received we have received it for information only, and also during the launch in April, there was a call from the Community Collaboration Table for organizations to endorse the protocol. There is a subcommittee that's being formed right now to look at how this protocol would work in practice. And so there would be other steps that need to be taken for organization to come up with an implementation plan.
Okay, just a quick short follow-up then would be, like, are there other documents like this that are waiting for council endorsement?
Councillor Wolf, not that I know of.
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Okay. So with that, I'm going to call the question on the motion. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. All right, that brings us to number 6, which is adoption of terminology and definition in Canada's anti-racism strategy. Was there someone wanting to speak to us on this? Yeah, go ahead. Okay, we'll hear you. Come on forward. So just the one delegation on this? What, there was someone? No. Please, introduce yourself. You've got 5 minutes.
This is Alisar Junaid, a resident of Richmond. So I believe that motion 6 isn't comprehensive because being an activist and a part of the Palestinian youth movement in Richmond, I think this motion kind of like doesn't give us the freedom or the ability to criticize like some movements against the Palestinian movements. For example, like I think it doesn't cover up the anti-Palestinian movements that's happening here. So it wouldn't give us like being. So I'm an activist in the Palestinian youth movement in Richmond. There are many movements that are anti-Palestinian. We usually do some rallies about and votes and stuff. So I think we wouldn't, like, this motion doesn't cover up the anti-Palestinian movements and stuff. So I just think it's not comprehensive. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
No worries.
Yes, sir. Well, come forward now. You have a question?
Yes, I do have a question. Thank you. Is there a specific Palestinian-related terminology that would please you to have added to the definition?
So I think it says that it's the motion 6 is against like anti-Semitic stuff. So I think in IHRA law that was mentioned in December, I believe, it says that like the Palestinian youth movement in Richmond and other stuff, they're claiming that it's anti-Semitic, and yeah, that's it.
All right, thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just would like to make a comment in here that is...
Introduce yourself.
Yeah, sorry. My name is Rahim Othman. Again, I'm a longtime resident of Richmond. I'd just like to refer that the document that's been included in the motion, it says it's from 2019 to 2022. So I understand this document actually has triggered a review cycle, I think, within the federal government. So we're going to anticipate changes to it. I would like to add also that this document is not comprehensive. It does not include definition for for hates or actions against other communities. So I think it will need to be further looked at and reviewed before it gets endorsed. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Day, you have a question.
Yeah. You know, there's just so many groups in Canada. We are a kaleidoscope of people. Is there a term that would work, that would cover everybody? Because like I'm thinking, as I was reading through it, we didn't mention seniors. You know,
Right.
Some people are against seniors, so.
Totally agree. And honestly, I think going through a definition is an infinite attempt every time there is going to be a group who would attempt to make a definition for. So there is one problem. The other problem is you would never find a community who would agree on one definition. I know that many definitions within this document don't have support from each community altogether. There would always be opposition to a certain definition. That's why I believe that the protocol in the previous motion is the solution to this, and not going through dry theoretical definitions that may or may not apply and sometimes send the wrong message.
So, okay, that raises another question. So we just approved number 7, which is a community protocol responding to hate and racism.
Right.
Do you
That's very
think-
comprehensive.
Yeah, so you're saying that number 6 is redundant because of number 7?
I think, okay, so number 6 now is the definition one. So I think number 7, which is the protocol,
Yeah.
is the one that's more comprehensive, the one that's more practical, the one that would really have the most impact and be more useful, while the other one is mostly theoretical. It's not a document that's comprehensive, and I don't think it resolves the issues that we currently have.
Okay, it's always interesting to hear from different groups because unless you're in it, you don't see it, it's
Right.
just, yeah. Well, thank you for that.
No
Appreciate
problem.
it.
All right, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go to Councillor Liu. Do you want to press your button there? And this is your motion, so go ahead.
Thank you, Worship. So my motion is that the City of Richmond adopt the terminology and definition in pages 21 to 24 of Canada's anti-racism strategy, 2019 to 2022 in its entirety. We just approved the protocol, and that's what we do when you experience incidents of hate and racism. Adopting the terminology is a positive step forward to combating racism by first defining it. This is a beginning, it's not an end. This in no way endorses a government, a regime, or their policies. We are not the governments or the policies of the places of our ancestry, and we shouldn't be subject to racism or hate based on those lands of our ancestry. I think in recent years, we've all heard about many racist attacks that have been on the rise. We've heard from many concerns. Many of us were at a recent anti-Asian hate fundraiser the other day, and certainly many of the Asian groups in Richmond have been pressing us as to what are we doing about it, how are we changing things, what's our plan. Part of the plan is to define what's going on. When we hear from leaders down south calling something a China virus, and so that you have a whole group of people feeling negatively about themselves because of what's going on, a worldwide pandemic, but that's suddenly being pushed on one group. We've heard from Islamic groups that have concerns in our community. We've heard from Jewish groups that have some concerns in our community. And, many of us just stood outside here and took pictures in our anti-bullying shirts. So we have goals and plans to have a better community, to fight bullying, to fight racism. And I think by defining racism, this moves us forward. Like I said, this is a beginning, not an end. It's not a conclusive list. It's a beginning, and it's a start, and I think it's a good start.
So you're going to move this?
So moved.
Is it seconded?
I'll second it for the floor.
All right, so it's moved and seconded. Councillor McNulty.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. The previous comments, I think, need to be, well, I guess the thing that got me on this, because we started off this was anti-Semitism and a motion that was going to come forward, et cetera. And I think whatever we can do is going to make the world a better place. And I think we can. But I too am concerned in adopting this is to be all-inclusive, all-encompassing, and comprehensive. When we have in the terminology, for example, we have two groups. We've left out 90% of Richmond. They're established groups, et cetera. And I'm really concerned the wording that we use and the wording that we put down, and whether we can add a corollary to say we're talking about everybody, as opposed to just specific groups. And the other question I had, and I'm not sure who can answer it, I understand some of the definitions are going to be upgraded. We've been getting notes and letters that there's going to be some sort of change in policy. In other words, whatever's coming down the road. And I think in anything we adopt or pass, that we make sure we're in the leading edge and we accept hopefully what comes down the road. If we can accept an overall policy, then we accept the updated policy too on it. So on that, again, I'm not. We've got the entirety, as I said, in delegation to the many committees are left out. How do we include them? And so before we go forward, at least put it on the floor. Let's have that discussion. What we can do to make sure we include everybody, no matter where they're from in the world. Okay, and regardless of what is happening in the world, in their homelands, etc. Let's do what we've got here, and let's look at our community. So I'm not sure how we do that, Your Worship, on it, whether we need to, I think we need to add to it, as opposed to...
Well, you've got 4 right now. You've got anti-Asian, anti-black, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia.
Okay, and what's left out?
Well, probably about 800. Or 80 at least. So anyway.
And that's my point is, how do we include them in our terminology to make sure everybody is on the one ship?
It's always the question of whether you deal with what you've got and get a good start, or wait until you define the world and then bring it in.
Well,
so let's hear from
what
others.
other members say. Thank you.
Councillor Heed.
Thank you, Chair. This is a controversial item. It's a controversial definition. It's one where we can't ignore what's going on around the world, although agreeing with Councillor McNulty, we want to try and be on the cutting edge, but you just have to look at what is taking place elsewhere. You have to look at what is taking place in some of the homeland, and you can't ignore that, because that is, certainly part of our web of belief of what's going on. I don't disagree with Councillor Liu that we need something. I agree with all of those statements. I certainly agree with the protocol, but I can tell you, having been the victim of racism, regardless, it's not a good thing. I think the way we handle it is going to be something that we have to be very cognizant of, that no groups are excluded. And, Councillor Hobbs would probably agree we're not going to get, and Mayor, we're not going to get all 800 different groups on this particular motion that's going forward. And I think this is something that we have to really do a lot of research on. I know personally I would like to talk to several groups that are out there right now, and I'll be proposing a motion to table this particular motion.
All right, we'll come back to you on that. Councillor Day.
Yeah, just, so we potentially are going to table this motion. If we said yes to this, would it go to a full council meeting or to a public hearing?
Not public hearing, it goes to council.
Okay. Well, I don't see that this is a rush. When I first read it, I thought, well, this is great. It's got everybody in there, but now apparently it doesn't. And we don't want to exclude any of the 80 or 800 groups that are out there. And I'm wondering if staff could offer, if we were to either refer it back or table it, would there be a way to get another group to suggest a term that could work for everybody? I mean, this is written by the Government of Canada, so I was thinking that this would do the trick. But now that, other groups have come forward, it's obviously clear that it's not inclusive enough. So what would staff do if we tabled it or referred it?
Does someone want to comment on that?
It stops.
We're not having a rush to the microphone.
Your Worship, through you to Councillor Day, I think the best thing that I could offer you is that we would take it away and give it some consideration and come back to you. But how it might be viewed or modified, we're not in a position to say today.
So is staff, I didn't quite hear, is it referring or tabling would be better?
I
Well,
believe,
it's different. I think the tabling motion is not to refer it to staff to get their opinion. I think Councillor Heed is saying that he wants to do his own due diligence on it. So it's fundamentally different in this case, at least.
Yeah, I could see that. So what's the advice of the chair?
Chair has just turned everybody off, sorry about that. So those still waiting to speak, let me know. Well, what Councillor Heed has said is he wants to do some due diligence, and so therefore his motion is going to be to table. I'm not sure that I see the benefit of referring this to staff. And I think that on the merits of the thing, I think that we could go on forever. We have a document that's been provided by the federal government, which has 4 very large groups that are included. We can always go as a council and have more definitions if that's what we want. But I don't think that by referring it to staff would, they'd be, with all respect to staff, I think they'd be scratching their head too, saying, well, what definitions do you want? I'm satisfied myself, and I have full respect for what Councillor Heed has said, but I believe that the biggest groups have been covered, and I think we should deal with it, but that's just my opinion. Councillor Hobbs.
Thank you, and through the chair. Well, this is a controversial topic, and it's controversial for different people for different reasons. And is it complete in terms of its groups that it identifies and tries to define? No, certainly not. Will it ever be complete and include all groups throughout the world? No, probably not. Will it satisfy everybody's view of whatever they have in this matter? No, probably not. But the point is, is it inconsistent with other plans and other things that the City of Richmond and Canada have done? For instance, the protocol we just passed? No, it's not inconsistent with that. It probably dovetails into that in some way or another quite nicely. The thing that I find about this is that it has been passed by the Government of Canada. And the Government of Canada, responsible for our whole country and also responsible for our foreign relations and external affairs, that carries some weight with me. And I think it was supported, I think unanimously, or almost anyway, overwhelmingly by our Parliament. And so I find that to be a reassuring part of this matter that's before us. It's quite theoretical. It's not, as I talked about with the community protocol, it's not that practical because, it's more in theory, and that's true. And it might not define every group, but there are, I think, 14 definitions in it that are quite useful. And I've dealt with these issues quite a bit in my past, and I still found them quite useful to read over and to think about. And none of those definitions are going to be perfect and meet everybody's answers and meet the needs of everybody, but it's actually still a move in the right direction. When there are changes or revisions that happen through Parliament, that takes a long time, so that's probably not happening overnight. So if those happen, I think that that's a time that Richmond should revisit it and look at it again if we do pass it. And we should make sure that what we have is consistent with whatever new action is taken by Parliament. Within identified groups, whatever group that you want to separate out, I think it's important to know or to recognize that there's not going to be total agreement within any group about what the right definition is or what the right words are. There's probably going to be disagreements within any group about what the best definition of whatever the exact matter is that you're talking about. So my point here is we'll never get to 100% agreement among all groups or even within any identified group. There's always going to be people that have a different opinion. And so what it comes down to for me is that, is this consistent with what we are trying to achieve in our community as far as having a harmonious community and people living beside one another peacefully? And I think it is consistent with that. Is it perfect? Does it answer these questions? No, I wouldn't try to pretend that it does. But it is consistent with what we're trying to do. And I think for that reason, I mean, I'll listen to the rest of the conversation, but I lean towards supporting it because I think that it is a step in the right direction. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Au.
Yes, Your Worship. I think, we need some kind of definition terminology being adopted. However, I would see that by adopting this for the definitions already in the federal document, the benefit is that, we don't have to reinvent the definitions. However, I think we need to have at least two clarifications before, we should move ahead. First, because the motion reads, we adopt this terminology and definitions in this federal document in entirety. And we know that, number one, as is being pointed out, is already expired. So whether or not there are going to be changes, we don't know. And secondly, if they change, are we going to change it again, with the new changes? So what is the relationship between our adoption and the federal document itself? I mean, if they're making changes, are we saying that, okay, we automatically tie together? So if they change, we follow the change. Or, okay, we adopt this for ourselves, whether or not they change, we don't care. So I think that kind of clarification, I think we need to make. And secondly, it's been raised a few times saying that the definition itself is okay, but some of the implications, such as, you may not be able to criticize the government, the actions of certain government, if we adopt this definition, I think that's a real concern. And I would like to seek what kind of clarification you can make when we, or if we, adopt this, or these definitions. So can we make a statement of some kind saying that, no, these are two separate things. The fact that, Richmond City adopts these definitions does not preclude any criticism on any government actions, by any of our community members. So I think those two things should be clarified before we adopt the definitions. By itself, I'm okay with the definitions, but I think then we need further clarifications.
Well, in terms of the latter point, if you want to introduce some kind of an amendment which says that this doesn't preclude criticism of another state, we could do something like that. But in terms of the first one, the recommendation is we adopt these specific definitions that are attached to, they're in our materials, they're referred to. There is not an automatic update. If the federal government, in its wisdom, decides to change it or update it or cancel it or whatever, ours would stay. Okay. So there's no, to me, there's no suggestion that there would be any automatic updating. We're not giving the federal government the ability to change our adoption. So as I say, if you want to add on something about not precluding criticism, or you want to change any definition in any way, you can do it by way of amendment.
Sure, yeah.
So, Councillor Wolf.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm a little bit hesitant on, as Councillor Day asked, referral to staff to acquire some information to be presented to us, or simply to table it and leave it on us to do. Looking through the Canada's anti-racism strategy, it does say that there's like annual reports that they were going to provide Canadians. So I haven't read through or seen those reports, and maybe there's the newest report that's available, and I think I'd like to see it. And so I'll entertain what the tabled or the motion to table this is all about, and if there's any more discussion I see around the table. Thanks.
Councillor Day.
Probably not come anywhere close to being inclusive, but this isn't time sensitive. And if there are people in the community that feel excluded, I don't think that's good. So if we do table it and allow those groups to come forward and help us to make something that is a made in Richmond solution to these definitions, and that might be the better option. I thought it was inclusive until, more other groups came forward, as I said earlier. So I don't mind to table this until, the public have a chance. It's too important to rush through. So if that's the motion, then I would be happy to support tabling it.
Okay, so anyway, we'll go back to Councillor Heed. Do you want to press your button there, Councillor? Okay. Okay, so I think your motion was to table this matter until the next General Purposes Committee meeting on Tuesday, February 21st, no? Go ahead, you make your motion, whatever it is.
Mayor, you have the motion correct to table this particular motion to the general purpose meeting on March 6th at 4 p.m.
Okay, on March 6th, 4 p.m. here at City Hall. Okay, so is that seconded?
Second.
Okay, so that's moved and seconded. Did you want to speak any further to it?
That's fine, Mayor, thank you.
Councillor McNulty.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I'll support going to table because we have to do this right. And make sure we've got it, if it means another month. My question is, what information do we want and what do we do? Are we just, what are we looking for? We need to have some direction. So
No, if this isn't going to staff. This is just simply table and each of us can do what you wish.
Okay, so it's up to the individual to
Yes.
get what information one needs and how we are going to deal with it. So I'll support tabling it, but I'd like legal, how we have all-inclusive. And we have everybody, and I know it's saying we can't do it, but you know what? We can try. We can try to include as many groups in it as possible. So anyhow, if that's what it is, obviously with the help of each other and the help of groups, maybe we can get some further information, and especially some of the groups that took part in the previous document. I think if we can respond and try to get some help from them for our own edifice.
This is not going to staff.
I know.
This is up to you if you want to contact those groups.
I'm going to. And that's what I'm trying to say, Your Worship. It is on our onus to go and get what we need to come back here on March the 4th, further discussion.
Councillor Day.
Thank you very much, Mayor Brody. On page 23 of the report, 383 of the GP item, discrimination, treating someone unfairly by either imposing a burden on them or denying them a privilege, benefit or opportunity enjoyed by others because of their race, citizenship, family status, disability, sex, or other personal characteristics. I think that's really close. If we could tweak that to now include other groups somehow and just word it in such a way as the previous document, the protocol responding to racism and hate. I think that if we talk to the very fine people out in the audience today that have already presented, I think that the answers are there. And since this isn't time sensitive, I'm happy to support tabling it just because, it's an all-inclusive society that we live in, and why not to put all our heads together and come up with something that makes sense. But I do believe that that paragraph on page 23 of the report is really close. So I don't think it's going to take that much effort for us to tweak this and make it just a tad better.
Councillor Hobbs.
Thank you, through the chair. I'm all in favor of making things better. Who wouldn't be? The trick here is that this is a federal document that we're talking about endorsing. So we don't get to go away and amend this or tweak this document and then bring it back and say we're going to endorse this. So on the one hand, waiting a month to vote on it, not a huge deal. The world isn't going to end. But I just want to be clear that once you take this off the table, it's not a matter of amending this motion or this document. What we're voting on today is whether we're going to accept what the federal government has already accepted on our behalf. And I'm sure they put a lot of work and have bigger budgets and more experts in coming up with all of these various definitions. Whether or not we come up with a better definition or not is highly debatable. whatever we come up with, if we do something different, it will not satisfy everybody. There will still be people that are unhappy with whatever various part of the definition. So it's a little bit difficult situation. On the one hand, I don't mind waiting a month, but on the other hand, this is what it is. This is something passed by the federal government. So the decision before us today, and what I'm trying to consider, is whether or not I can endorse what the federal government has already passed. And I can. Does that mean that we can't do something different or improve it somehow in Richmond? Yeah, maybe we can. But those two things are separate. They're related, but separate. We can't amend this document. And that's what is before me today. And actually, I like what I read in this document, recognizing its deficiencies and its shortcomings, but it's not our document. It's the federal government, it's Parliament's. And so that's the tough part about today. Putting it off a month, we can't change this document. Thank you.
Councillor Liu.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I'm not going to support tabling this. I think this is a step forward. I think we are adopting this terminology the way it is. As Councillor Hobbs said, this is a federal document. We've heard from a lot of people that moving forward on our anti-racism work is important. We can add to this, or we can adopt more definitions, we can adopt more ideas, we can adopt more things every day of the week. We can move this forward now, and we can continue forward and keep moving forward.
Councillor Glanders.
Thank you, Your Worship. I also think we could move forward with this. I think it is very inclusive because everybody is included under the discrimination. I think that South Asians would be included under anti-Asian. I mean, I'm not sure, but I also have faith in the federal government's process of creating a document that was supported by all of Parliament. So I think that we have our own Made in Richmond's protocol document, which is the item that we discussed previously, which is great. And then this just helps have some definitions. And as it gets updated, and if the federal government it comes out with another one or it updates, then we can adopt and move forward with that as well. I don't think it's our job to change nationally accepted definitions. And I don't think we're going to come up with anything better than what's in here. So.
I think, from my point of view, I have great respect for the motion that's on the floor and what Councillor Heed and others have said. What I haven't heard is a lot of criticism about what is on the floor. What I hear is, we want more. Well, as far as I'm concerned, if there's other groups that anybody on council feels should have more definition, I say bring them forward and we can talk about it at any time as to what kind of definition we're going to adopt. So the question to my mind, this is, as has been stated, this is a federal document. This has been thoroughly reviewed. Does it take us a certain distance? The answer is yes. With all respect, I'm not going to support tabling the motion. So on
Point of order and clarity.
well, just or a question or whatever.
If we read the motion.
Yes.
The motion says to adopt terminology and definition. It didn't say adopt a policy. It said definitions.
Right.
And these definitions are on our 4 pages, correct?
Yeah.
All right, so the definitions are fine. Everybody kept talking, we're adopting a whole policy. We're not adopting a policy then. We are adopting terminology on page 381 to 384. That's a lot different than the discussion that we just had. I kept hearing about we're adopting a government policy, et cetera, et cetera. No, we're adopting definitions that are here, and if we want, we could add more definitions if we wanted to.
Yes.
Okay.
And my point.
That makes a big, big difference.
And my point is, if we like what we see, we can adopt it. And if we think that there should be more in addition, we can do that through referral, through more motions, through whatever. Okay, we're going to go back to Councillor Heed to finish this off.
Yes, I'll just wrap up in response to some of the comments that were made here. You know, we don't have to adopt what the federal government wants. We don't. It's not upon us to have to just endorse what they do. If this is the right thing to do, we should do it. If it's the right thing to adopt what the federal government is doing, we should do it. If we have the right policy or protocols in Richmond, and it's the right thing to do, we should just do it. You ask what groups are excluded? Well, the presentation we had here today on the Palestine group that's being excluded. I just want to do my own due diligence, as you indicated earlier, Mayor, and that's why I put the motion forward. I think all of us should go away and do our due diligence on this particular issue, because I don't think we all have a clear picture of what this definition motion is all about.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. So on the motion to table, I'll call the question. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. Those opposed? It is defeated with Councillor Galanders, Au, Liu, Hobbs, and the mayor opposed. So that brings us to the, I want to call the question on the main motion. Sorry? Well, just hang on a second. Councillor Day.
Yeah, thanks. So just to be clear, if this is approved as written today, then it's possible for speakers groups to come forward, bring us some new ideas so we could amend this on the next council meeting.
We can amend it. We can amend this or add to it, which is probably more likely.
Yeah, okay.
Anytime.
Yeah.
I mean, whether it comes to committee and then to council or however it happens.
So this will go to council for, I guess, next week. Is it next week?
Yep.
Okay. Is there a chance we could delay it till the following full council meeting, just to give the public a little longer to reach out to councilors?
That would be against our procedure. So
Would
no,
that be
it always goes to the next council meeting.
Would that be a friendly suggestion, that we just simply delay it a
We
month?
just went through a motion to table it.
Yeah, but this is not, this is
So
going to
think of
go,
your chances on that.
I don't know, because it's just delaying till the next council meeting.
Okay, I'm going to Councillor Au.
Yes, I want to make an amendment by adding a part 2 to the motion, which reads, for clarity, adopting these definitions does not preclude the criticism of specific actions of a particular government or state.
Second. I want you to say that again.
Good. For clarity, adopting these definitions does not preclude the criticism of specific actions of a particular government or state.
Actions
of a particular government or state.
particular government or state. Okay, so that's a motion to amend, well, it's really to add number 2. To add number 2. And that's been moved and seconded. So, Councillor Hobbs, you're on the next on the list on this.
Thanks, and through the chair. I mean, I get the intent of that, and I don't have any disagreement with it, really, but we do all understand that we live in a country of laws, and we have the right to free speech, and so this is a little bit redundant in that you are free to criticize anybody, anywhere, in any country, any government, including this council. And so I understand, I think, why that's being added on, and I don't think I object to it, but we should be clear that this in no way, what we're doing here today, inhibits anybody from criticizing any government anywhere around the world for anything, and we would never do anything that would do so. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe we could have a motion so you can't criticize council, that would be good. Exclusion, that's how. Okay, other comments? This is on the amendment to add the number 2. All those in favor? Any opposed? It is carried with Councillors Liu and Heed opposed. So that is carried. So now on the motion as amended with number 2, I am going to call the question on the motion. All those in favor? Those opposed? It is carried with Councillor Heed opposed. Okay, so someone want to move adjournment? Okay, thank you. We're now adjourned in the General Purposes Committee. So, let's call the Finance Committee meeting to order. May I have a motion on the minutes? Moved and seconded. Discussion, all those in favor, opposed, carried. Then we got two budgets to talk about. First of all, we got Lulu Island Energy Company. Alan Polstolka, anything to add to your report?
Go ahead to the report.
Okay. So that's moved and seconded. Any discussion on that? All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. And the Oval Corporation, the annual operating and capital budgets. Rick Desange, anything to add to your report?
Nothing further to add, Your Worship.
Okay, someone want to move it? Moved and seconded. Okay, Councillor Day.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm looking at page FIN 25, which is the Olympic Oval Corporation operating budget. And what concerns me is the marketing budget of $582,000. That seems very, very, very high, and that's a 7% change from what it was last year. Can you give me one reason why I should think that that's a good thing?
Through Your Worship to Councillor Day, the marketing budget actually at its peak was over $900,000. What that also includes is it includes labor costs as well. So it's not just non-labor related marketing costs, it's labor and non-labor costs.
How many employees work at Oval?
There are four full-time labor positions in there.
Four?
Correct.
Full-time. Yeah, I know I'm a broken record on this, everybody, but I've always said, you know, we have to decide whether the Oval is a business or it's a community center, and it's been being treated as both. And if you told South Arm Community Center they could have $545,000 to market them, they would be doing cartwheels in the parking lot. So once again, I'm just not happy with the budget. I'm sorry I can't support it.
All right, Councillor McNulty.
Yeah, just two questions, if I may. On our FIN 25, the 210 Games Operating Trust is now up to $3.725 million. When did we get the boost, and is it going to continue to go up? Because not long ago it was 2 and change, and so it's a good news thing that it is rising.
We may need to go into a closed meeting for that one because it's our relationship with the Games Operating Trust is not a matter for the open meeting.
Not even when we get the last boost, public? That's all I want. I'm not trying to get into the thing.
What was it last year?
It's a positive.
Through the worship to Councillor McNulty, if I can just make a general statement. Each year we apply for the Games Operating Trust funding, and there's no guarantee whether we receive a portion of the contingency or not.
But it's been good news up to now from what I read, so I'm not criticizing it. Get $4 million next year if you can. The other question I had too, in terms of expenses, membership admission to program, that you're budgeting for expenses an increase of 22%. What's happening there? Are we losing?
Through Your Worship to Councillor McNulty, if you look at the memberships, admissions, and programs revenue line item as well, that's increasing by more than the amount of the expenditures. Mm-hmm. We are coming out of the pandemic, so we've seen our building get busier and busier, so our revenues have been increasing, but at the same time, our expenses have also been increasing.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Galanders.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, just a question. This one-page operating budget doesn't have any breakdown of anything. I was just wondering, do we ever get to see a breakdown of what makes up the 6.8 million? Like what you're expecting the categories to go into? Or?
Through your worship, the Oval's operating budget goes through our board of directors for approval, and when we bring it to city council, it comes as information. We do have a breakdown that we have and can provide. In terms of what that includes, it would be all of our programming related labor and non-labor related costs. We have several programs that we run out of the Oval, our fitness programs, our general admissions, our events, our sport hosting program. All of those costs would be built into that number.
So then after the budget's approved, and then you have your operations for the year, do we get a report on how the year turned out with all that, with a breakdown then?
We get quarterly reports.
Quarterly reports? Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Someone move adjournment? Okay, I'll call the